By the time the custody hearing reached its final hour, Caleb Turner looked exactly like the kind of father the courtroom expected to lose. His jacket was clean but worn at the cuffs. His tie had been knotted in a hurry before sunrise, after he had packed a lunchbox, signed a school folder, and coaxed his daughter through breakfast in the cramped apartment they had called home for 6 years. The mother's attorney made sure every one of those details sounded less like devotion and more like evidence. Caleb was overworked, underpaid, living in a neighborhood no little girl should have to grow up in. He worked too many hours, had too little help, and could offer too little of everything that looked impressive on paper. Across the aisle, Lauren Whitmore sat polished and composed, her posture straight, her voice gentle whenever the judge looked her way. She had returned with photographs of a bright suburban house, a private bedroom for her daughter, and a neat plan for after-school programs, piano lessons, and a future that sounded expensive enough to be convincing. She never raised her voice. She did not have to. Every word from her side carried the same sharp message. Caleb loved his daughter, but love was not enough. Caleb kept his eyes on the table because he knew what the room saw when it looked at him. A black single father with tired eyes, rough hands, and bills he could not hide. A man who had spent years holding things together with overtime shifts, secondhand furniture, and faith. A man easy to pity and easier to dismiss. The judge had begun arranging the papers in front of her with the slow, deliberate movements of someone nearing a decision. Caleb's lawyer had gone quiet. Lauren's attorney was already pressing the advantage, speaking in that soft, practiced tone that made cruelty sound responsible. Even the air in the courtroom seemed to settle around the idea that a father like Caleb Turner could be decent, could be loving, and could still lose. Then the courtroom door opened. The sound cut through the silence so sharply that every head turned at once. Little Ava Turner stood in the doorway, her small fingers wrapped tightly around the hand of an older woman no one seemed to recognize. Ava's curls were slightly uneven, as if someone had tried to smooth them in a hurry. Her backpack still hung from one shoulder. She looked frightened, but she did not let go. For one frozen second, nobody moved. Then Caleb looked up, saw the woman beside his daughter, and felt the blood drain from his face. Because he knew her. And if Margaret Doyle had just walked into that courtroom holding Ava's hand, then the secret Caleb had buried for years to protect his daughter from hating her mother was about to come alive in front of everyone. If stories about courage, family, and hard-won truth mean something to you, take a second to subscribe and follow the channel. It helps more people find stories like this, and it lets us keep bringing you the ones that stay with you long after they end. 5 weeks before the hearing, Caleb Turner's days began in the dark. At 5:14 a.m., the alarm on his phone buzzed against the milk crate beside his bed, and he shut it off before it could wake Ava in the next room. The apartment was small enough that every sound carried. Pipes knocked in the walls. The refrigerator clicked and hummed like it was thinking about giving up. When Caleb crossed the hall in his socks, he already knew which floorboard would groan and which one would stay quiet. He started coffee for himself and oatmeal for Ava, then stood over the sink rinsing out a plastic lunch container with a cracked blue lid. By habit, he checked the weather through the kitchen window while he worked. Gray sky, thin drizzle, cold enough for Ava's green coat, not cold enough for gloves. When he opened Ava's bedroom door, she was curled under a blanket printed with faded stars, one arm around a stuffed rabbit missing an ear. For a moment, he only watched her. No matter how tired he was, those first few seconds of seeing her safe and asleep made the whole day feel possible. "Rise and shine, ladybug," he said softly. Ava made a face under the blanket. 5 more minutes. You said that yesterday. And it worked yesterday. He smiled despite himself. Up! By the time she shuffled into the kitchen in mismatched socks, Caleb had oatmeal on the table, a banana sliced into careful rounds, and her school folder waiting beside the spoon. Ava climbed onto her chair and studied him with the seriousness she used whenever she thought he looked extra tired. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "Enough?" "That means no." That means eat your breakfast. She ate 3 bites before sliding off the chair and bringing him the comb and a handful of bright hair ties from the counter. This was their ritual. Ava sat on the floor between his knees while Caleb tried to turn her wild curls into something the school would call presentable. He had gotten better over the years, but only just. "You're pulling," she said. "I'm being careful." "That is not the same thing." "It is a hard-working kind of careful." Ava tilted her head so she could look back at him. "That doesn't mean anything." "It means hold still." She did, mostly. He parted her hair into sections, fingers big and careful, tongue pressed to the side of his mouth in concentration. When he finished, the puffs were uneven, but the parts were neat. Ava examined herself in the microwave door. "One side's higher. That side has more personality." She turned toward him with a look that said she knew exactly when he was stalling. Then she broke into a grin. "You always say that, because it's always true." He tucked her lunch into her backpack. Before zipping it, he slid in the note he wrote every morning on scraps torn from an old receipt pad. Today's note said only, "Be brave, be kind. Dad loves you." On the walk to school, Ava kept one hand in his and skipped around puddles with the other arm stretched out for balance. The neighborhood was all brick apartment buildings, chain-link fences, and narrow patches of grass beaten thin by winter. It was not beautiful, but Caleb knew every stoop, every corner store, every woman who watched children from a window with the blinds pushed aside. He knew which crossing light took too long, which bus stop to avoid after dark, which cashier might slip Ava an extra pack of crackers if she looked hungry. "Are you coming Friday?" Ava asked as they waited at a crosswalk. "What's Friday?" "My presentation." "You told me about that?" "I told you 2 times. Caleb winced. "That sounds like something I should remember." "It is." He squeezed her hand. "Then I'll be there." She searched his face, checking whether he meant it. "I'll be there," he repeated. Only then did she nod. "Okay." At the school doors, she hesitated, then hooked her pinky around his. It was something she had done since kindergarten, a small, wordless contract between them whenever she felt nervous. "What do we say?" he asked. Ava's mouth moved with his. "Home is where we tell the truth." "That's right." She let go and went inside. Caleb watched until she disappeared down the hall. Then he turned toward the bus stop and the first shift of his day. He worked mornings at a distribution warehouse on the edge of the city, moving pallets, scanning freight, lifting things heavier than his back appreciated. In the evenings, he drove food deliveries until his eyes blurred at red lights. The schedule was brutal, but it was honest, and honest had kept Ava clothed, fed, and with a roof over her head. Most days, that had to be enough. At lunch, his phone buzzed with a number he did not recognize. He almost ignored it. Then he stepped into the corridor by the loading dock and answered. "Mr. Turner?" a woman asked. "Yes. This is Janice Howard from the Family Court Clerk's office. I'm calling to confirm service has been completed in the matter of Whitmore versus Turner." Caleb's grip tightened on the phone. "Service?" There was a pause, the kind professionals used when they realized they were the first person saying something life-changing out loud. "Yes, sir. The petition for modification of custody was delivered to your residence yesterday evening." He said nothing. "Mr. Turner?" "I'm here." Janice's tone softened by 1 degree. "Your hearing date is listed for next month. If you do not yet have counsel, the notice includes information for legal aid resources." He thanked her because he had been raised to thank people even when they were handing him a disaster. Then he ended the call and stood in the stale warehouse hallway while forklifts whined in the distance. The envelope had been shoved halfway under his apartment door the night before. He had noticed it after midnight, too exhausted to do more than set it on the kitchen table beside the unpaid electric bill. He had planned to open it after putting Ava to bed. He had forgotten. The rest of the shift passed in fragments. Numbers on labels, a supervisor asking if he was with them, the metallic slam of truck doors. When he got home that evening, the apartment was dim except for the yellow light above the stove. Ava was at the table coloring a horse blue, while Mrs. Jenkins from downstairs drank tea from a chipped mug. "He made it," Mrs. Jenkins said, gathering her purse. "Child finished her homework and only corrected my spelling 3 times." "It was 4, Ava said. Mrs. Jenkins winked at Caleb on her way out. "You owe me pie." When the door closed, Caleb looked at the envelope on the table. It was exactly where he had left it, as if the whole apartment had been waiting for him to be brave enough to touch it. Ava noticed his face. "Did something happen?" He put on his calm voice. "Nothing you need to worry about." That answer did not satisfy her, but she had learned over the years that adults sometimes needed time before they could tell the truth properly. She returned to coloring while Caleb slit the envelope open with a butter knife. Lauren Whitmore requested primary physical custody. Lauren Whitmore alleged that Caleb's financial instability, excessive work hours, inadequate housing, and lack of support network had created an environment inconsistent with Ava's best interests. Lauren Whitmore proposed that Ava relocate to Brookhaven County to reside with her mother in a 4-bedroom home with access to excellent schools, structured extracurricular opportunities, and a stable 2-parent household. Caleb read the pages twice, then a 3rd time. The words did not change. Lauren had been gone so long that Ava measured time by school grades and apartment leases instead of by her mother's absence. She sent birthday gifts some years. Other years, she sent apologetic texts in December and promised to do better in January. In the last year, she had begun reaching out more regularly, asking for visits, sending polished emails, talking about rebuilding trust. Caleb had allowed short public visits because Ava deserved the chance to know who her mother was. He had not expected Lauren to turn that inch into a legal claim. "Daddy?" He looked up. Ava had set down her crayon. "Is it Mom?" Children knew more than adults liked to admit. Caleb's hand moved over the papers to cover the heading. "She wants to talk to a judge about changing things," he said. Ava stiffened. "Changing what things?" He should have lied. He knew that later he would wish he had bought them one more night of peace. But he had made her a promise years ago and repeated it ever since. "Home is where we tell the truth." "She wants you to come live with her." Ava pulled back enough to search his face. "Do you want that?" "No." "Then say no." His throat tightened. "I'm going to." She considered the answer, then nodded once as if accepting instructions before a fire drill. "Okay." That Friday, Caleb left the warehouse 20 minutes early for Ava's school presentation and got docked for it. He arrived breathless, with sweat cooling under his collar, just in time to see her stand at the front of the classroom holding a poster board about manatees. She kept looking toward the door while she spoke, even after she found him in the back. Only when she saw him did her voice steady. When the class ended, Ava ran to him with the poster folded against her chest. "You came!" "I said I would." She beamed. "I know. I just needed to see it." On the walk home, she talked about manatees, then multiplication, then whether rabbits could get lonely. Caleb answered when he could and listened when he couldn't. Halfway up their building's front steps, a silver SUV was parked at the curb, so polished it reflected the whole street in its side panels. Lauren stepped out from the driver's seat wearing a camel coat and heeled boots that had never met mud. Her hair was smooth, her lipstick perfect, her face arranged into something between tenderness and strategy. Ava stopped so abruptly her backpack bumped into Caleb's leg. "Hi, sweetheart," Lauren said. Ava did not move. Caleb came down one step and placed himself just slightly in front of his daughter. It was not dramatic enough for anyone else to call defensive, but Lauren noticed. He saw it in the brief tightening around her mouth. "You should have called," he said. "I did call. You didn't answer." "I was working." "Exactly," Lauren said, almost too softly to qualify as a criticism. Then her eyes shifted to Ava. "I thought maybe we could talk." Ava's fingers found Caleb's pinky and held on. "There's nothing to talk about on the sidewalk," Caleb said. Lauren drew a slow breath. "You don't get to decide that alone." He almost laughed at the nerve of it. Years of silence, and she arrived talking about what he did not get to decide. "You want to see her? We can set a time." "A time?" Lauren repeated. "Caleb, she's my daughter. And she's not a weekend errand." For the first time, a spark of heat flashed through Lauren's polished calm. "I am trying to do this the right way." "The right way would have been years ago." Ava pressed closer to his side. Caleb felt the slight tremor in her hand and adjusted his tone before it could sharpen further. Lauren saw it too. Her eyes landed on Ava, and when she spoke again, her voice softened into something that might have been genuine or might have been expertly chosen. "Sweetheart, I know this is strange. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm here now, and I want a chance to make things better." Ava's lips parted, then closed. Lauren took one careful step forward. "I have a room for you. It's painted yellow. I remembered yellow was your favorite." Ava looked at Caleb as if asking whether she was allowed to answer. "It's okay," he said quietly. Ava turned back. "My favorite color is green now." The words were not cruel. They were small, factual, and devastating. Lauren's face changed for only a second, but Caleb caught it. Surprise first, then the hurt pride of someone realizing a child's life had kept moving without her. "Things can change," Lauren said. Ava nodded, though it was clear she was no longer talking about colors. Lauren reached into her purse and pulled out a gift bag with tissue paper peeking over the top. "I brought you something." Ava did not take it. Caleb did, because letting it hang between them felt worse. The bag was heavy, expensive, unnecessary. "Thanks," he said. Lauren straightened her shoulders, reclaiming whatever composure the moment had taken. "My attorney will be in touch." "So will mine," Caleb said, though he didn't have one yet. She glanced toward the building, the rusted railing, the chipped concrete steps, the window unit patched with duct tape. Caleb knew that look. Not disgust exactly, assessment, as if she were mentally photographing every flaw for later use. "I'm not trying to hurt her," she said at last. Caleb met her eyes. "That doesn't mean you won't." Lauren got back into the SUV. The engine purred to life, quiet and expensive. She drove away without another word. Ava stayed very still until the vehicle turned the corner. Then she let out a breath she seemed to have been holding since the moment it arrived. "Do I have to go with her?" she asked. "No." "But what if a judge says so?" Caleb wished, with a force that almost made him dizzy, that there were answers children could trust simply because their fathers wanted them to be true. He set the gift bag on the steps and crouched in front of her. "Listen to me," he said. "Nobody is taking you anywhere today." "Today," Ava repeated. He hated that she noticed the word. He hated even more that she had learned to notice words adults used when they were trying not to lie. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. "I'm going to fight for you." Ava studied him, her eyes too serious for 8 years old. "Even if she has a big house?" "Yes." "Even if they wear suits and say fancy things?" "Yes." "Even if you're tired?" That one nearly undid him. He swallowed and made himself smile. "Especially then." She nodded once. Then she did what she always did when she decided to be brave before she felt brave. She hooked her pinky around his. "What do we say?" he asked. Ava whispered, "Home is where we tell the truth." They went upstairs together. That night, after she fell asleep with one hand tangled in his sleeve, Caleb sat at the kitchen table and started calling legal aid numbers. If Lauren wanted strangers to judge his life, then he would have to find a way to tell the truth before her version of it became the only one anybody heard. By the second week after Lauren filed, Caleb had learned that family court could turn ordinary hardship into a character flaw. The first attorney he met glanced at his pay stubs, his lease, and Lauren's petition, then said, "The judge is going to care about stability." Caleb understood what that meant. Stability was a house with a yard, a husband with benefits, a refrigerator full enough to be photographed. Stability was money that came before panic. It did not look like 2 jobs and a daughter doing homework at the kitchen table while her father reheated leftovers. "I've raised her," Caleb said. The attorney nodded. That matters. But your ex-wife has made this a comparison case, and comparisons are dangerous when one side has more to show. He found counsel through a non-profit clinic downtown. Dana Mercer was blunt, brisk, and unimpressed by self-pity. She read Lauren's filing in silence, then said, "She's not trying to prove you're abusive. She's trying to prove she can offer something better." "What does better mean?" Caleb asked. Dana looked at him over the page. "Depends who gets to define it." Dana asked precise questions. Who handled school forms, doctor visits, homework, nightmares, fevers, conferences, emergency pickups? Caleb answered every one. The list became its own testimony. Then she asked, "What about the mother's absence?" Caleb's shoulders tightened. "She was gone." "How gone?" "In and out at first, then mostly out." "Did she abandon Ava?" He hated the word. "She left." "Why?" He stared past Dana's shoulder. "She said she couldn't do it anymore." Dana waited. "That isn't the whole story." No, it wasn't. But the whole story had teeth. If he said it in a filing, someday Ava might read it. He had spent years making sure his daughter could miss her mother without having to fear her. "Not yet," he said. Dana set down her pen. "You do not get points in court for protecting someone who is trying to take your child. I'm protecting Ava. That may end up costing you Ava." He carried that sentence home like a weight. Because Lauren had been absent for so long, the court ordered reunification visits at a family services center before the hearing. Dana explained that it was standard in cases where one parent was trying to re-establish a relationship after extended inconsistency. Caleb was grateful for the supervision and ashamed that he was grateful for it. The first visit happened that Friday. Lauren arrived with a bakery box tied in white string and wore a soft blue sweater. She hugged Ava gently and asked about school in a voice so carefully warm it made Caleb tired. A monitor named Sheila signed everyone in, reviewed the rules, and led Ava and Lauren into the children's room while Caleb waited in the hallway. When Sheila stepped away to speak with another staff member, Lauren's voice floated through the half-open door. "If you lived with me, you'd have your own room." Ava answered quietly, "I have a room." "You have half a room, sweetheart." Caleb's hand flattened against the wall. Lauren kept going. "At my house, you'd have space for your books, a desk by the window, and piano lessons if you want them. There's a garden, too." Ava was silent long enough that Caleb knew she was imagining it. Then she asked, "Would Dad come too?" The silence that followed was brutal. Lauren answered carefully, "No, honey, it would just be different." On the walk home, Ava held the cupcake box against her chest and cried under the awning of a laundromat while rain hammered above them. "I don't want a yellow room," she said through tears. "I don't even like yellow anymore." Caleb crouched in front of her. "Hey, look at me. I don't want different." "I know." "She says I'd have more stuff." "She probably would give you more stuff." Ava scrubbed at her eyes. "Then why does that make me feel bad?" Because Lauren's promises sounded too much like a verdict on the life Ava already had. Caleb brushed wet curls off her forehead. "It feels bad because you think you're supposed to choose." "Aren't I?" "No." He made his voice firm enough to hold her. "You're not supposed to carry grown-up things." Ava sniffed hard. "But they keep putting them on me." That sentence stayed with him. Dana built the case around routines. Records showed Caleb as the emergency contact, the parent's signature, the pickup person, the man who signed report cards and medication forms. Mrs. Jenkins wrote that she watched Ava only when Caleb was running late from work, that he always called, always came straight home, and always paid her back in cash or groceries. Ava's teacher wrote that Caleb never missed conferences unless a shift trapped him. "It helps," Dana said. "It proves consistency. It doesn't prove money." "No," Dana said, "but custody law is not supposed to be an auction." A week before the hearing, Lauren's attorney sent photographs of the Brookhaven house. White trim, clean porch, a yellow bedroom with a canopy bed and shelves lined with books that looked chosen for display. Caleb stared at the images after Ava fell asleep and felt two ugly things at once: anger and shame. Anger because Lauren had staged a child's future like a showroom. Shame because for one terrible second he understood how convincing it looked. He put the photos away and pulled the old file box from the top of his closet. Inside were tax papers, expired insurance cards, Ava's kindergarten drawings, and the emergency room record from the night he never talked about. The report was only a few pages. It listed the date, a cut to Ava's forehead, distress, observation, release. Guardian present, father. Nothing about the shattered lamp. Nothing about Lauren screaming. Nothing about the way Lauren walked out before dawn. He closed the file, then opened it again. After a long minute, he called the only number he still had from the old building on Mercer Street. Curtis, a former neighbor, answered with sleep in his voice. "Curtis, it's Caleb Turner." A pause. "From Mercer?" "Yeah, I need to find somebody. Margaret Doyle." Curtis whistled softly. "Miss Margaret moved years ago." "I know." "I heard Pennsylvania, maybe Delaware. You got anything else?" Curtis thought. "She had a niece, Erin maybe, helped her move." It was almost nothing, but Caleb wrote it down anyway. For the next several days, he used lunch breaks and delivery stops to chase pieces of a woman who had disappeared years earlier. Church offices, an old tenant list, a disconnected landline, a retired pastor who remembered Margaret by the flower brooches she always wore and promised to check an address book. Dana noticed the exhaustion in Caleb's face. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Trying to find a witness." "To what?" He looked at the floor. "Something that happened a long time ago." Dana lowered her voice. "Caleb, I cannot build a case from mystery." So he told her enough to change the room. Not everything at first, but enough. Lauren had come back one night after weeks away, frantic and brittle. They had argued. Ava had been awake. A lamp shattered. Ava got hurt in the chaos. Lauren left before morning. Caleb never called the police. He never filed anything. He told everyone only that Lauren was gone. Dana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked, "And Margaret saw the aftermath?" "Yes." "And you've kept this out because Ava loves her mother. And if Ava ends up with her mother because you wanted to preserve that love?" Caleb said nothing. Dana's tone softened. "A judge may hear your silence as proof that it was not serious, or proof that you're making it up now." That night, Caleb sat on Ava's bed while she colored and asked, "Do you remember the apartment on Mercer Street?" "Sort of," she said. "The windows rattled." He smiled faintly. "Yeah. And the lady with peppermints." His head lifted. "You remember her?" "She smelled like flowers." Ava looked up from her paper. "Why?" "No reason." That was a lie, and Ava knew it, but she let him keep it. 3 days before the hearing, Caleb finally got his first real lead. The retired pastor called back and said Margaret's niece had emailed him 2 years earlier from Cedar County. Dana reached out through the church contact, leaving a message that included the court date, the county, and her office number. There was still no reply by the night before the hearing. The hearing began on a cold Tuesday morning. Family court was smaller than television promised. No jury, no grand speeches, just fluorescent lights, wood benches, and a judge whose face betrayed almost nothing. Lauren arrived with her attorney, Richard Bell, and with her fiancé, Matthew Collins, seated behind her in a navy blazer. Matthew never spoke, but his silence still performed a function. Stability, respectability, backup. Lauren took the stand first. Richard led her through regret, therapy, financial recovery, and a renewed commitment to motherhood. She admitted mistakes. She acknowledged Caleb had cared for Ava alone for years. She praised him for it. "Mr. Turn has done what he could," she said. "But Ava deserves more than survival. She deserves security, structure, and opportunity." Richard introduced photographs of the house, the yellow bedroom, school enrollment papers, and a color-coded weekly plan. Dana's cross-examination was sharp but brief. She made Lauren admit the long absences, missed birthdays, unpaid months, broken promises. Lauren accepted each point with graceful regret and turned every failure into the same conclusion. She had changed, and now she was ready to give Ava what Caleb could not. By the time she stepped down, she looked redeemed. Then Caleb took the stand. Dana walked him through mornings, homework, fevers, hair, lunches, doctor visits, school pickups, and bedtime fears. He answered steadily. He was not polished, but he was real. Then Richard Bell rose. "Mr. Turner, you work 2 jobs, correct?" "Yes." "So there are days when you leave before your daughter wakes and return after dark?" "Sometimes."
"And when that happens, who watches Ava?"
"Mrs. Jenkins, my neighbor." "An elderly neighbor with no legal duty to your child?" "A trusted neighbor." Richard nodded. "You've been late on utility payments more than once in the last year?" "Yes." "Your daughter has no private yard, no dedicated study room, and no access to the opportunities available in Brookhaven County, correct?" Dana objected. The judge narrowed the question, but the impression had already landed. Richard lifted one of the glossy photographs. "Would you agree that Ms. Whitmore can provide a higher standard of living?" Caleb looked at the yellow room. "She can provide more money." Richard smiled faintly. "That wasn't my question." No, Caleb thought. It never was. Richard lowered the photo. "Have you ever withheld important information about Ms. Whitmore from your daughter?" Caleb felt his pulse climb. "I never spoke badly about her." "Again, that wasn't my question. Have you withheld information?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because she's her mother." Richard let that settle over the room. "So you decide what Ava knows, who she sees, and what stories she hears. Would it be fair to say you are used to controlling access to your daughter?" Dana objected immediately, but the word controlling was already in the air. Court recessed for the day with the judge unreadable and Caleb feeling skinned alive. Outside the courtroom, Dana caught his arm. "If Margaret is coming, I need to know." "I don't know." "Try to find out." That night, Ava sat at the kitchen table doing spelling words while Caleb refreshed his phone every few minutes. Mrs. Jenkins had dropped off chicken casserole and stayed long enough to make him eat. "You should sleep," she told him. "You should mind your business." "I'm 81, she said. "My business is everybody's business." Ava looked at Caleb and asked, "Are you losing?" He set down the phone. He could have lied. Instead, he said the only honest thing he had. "I'm still here." Ava frowned. "That's not the same thing." "No," he said quietly. "It's not." She studied him for a moment, then reached across the table and hooked her pinky around his. He held on longer than usual. The second morning of the hearing began with Ava missing. It was not a dramatic disappearance. No alarms went off. No deputies ran through the halls. But when Dana Mercer checked the bench outside the courtroom where Mrs. Jenkins had been sitting with Ava and found only the old woman, her expression hardened at once. "She went to the restroom 2 minutes ago," Mrs. Jenkins said, already standing. "A clerk pointed her that way." Caleb was on his feet before she finished the sentence. The hallway outside family court was lined with dull beige doors, bulletin boards covered in notices, and rows of plastic chairs bolted to the wall. It should have been impossible to lose a child there. That only made the panic worse. Caleb moved fast past vending machines, restrooms, stairwells, and the elevator bank, calling Ava's name in a voice he fought to keep from breaking. Lauren and Richard Bell had stepped out of another conference room by then, both wearing identical expressions of polite concern. Caleb barely looked at them. "Ava!" he called again. Dana appeared near the security desk. "No one saw her leave the floor." Mrs. Jenkins was muttering prayers under her breath. The judge's clerk emerged from the courtroom to say they would resume in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Caleb's chest tightened so hard he could feel his heartbeat in his throat. Ava hated unfamiliar buildings. She hated fluorescent lights, echoing corridors, and any place where adults spoke in clipped, important voices. She also hated being late, disappointing people, and making scenes. If she was frightened, she might have gone somewhere quiet and stayed there. He forced himself to think like her. Not the front doors. Too many strangers. Not downstairs. She hated escalators after one scary stumble at the mall when she was 5. Somewhere tucked away. Somewhere she could watch without being watched. He checked the alcove outside the records office. Empty. Then, at the far end of the corridor, near a row of tall windows, he saw a small green backpack resting against the wall. Ava stood beside it, clutching the hand of an older woman in a brown coat. For a moment, Caleb stopped breathing. The woman's hair was silver now, cut shorter than he remembered. Her back was a little more bent, but he would have known Margaret Doyle anywhere, even before he saw the flower pin fixed to her lapel. Ava looked up and saw him. Relief flooded her face, but she did not let go of Margaret's hand. "Daddy," she said, "I found the peppermint lady." Caleb crossed the distance in 3 long strides and crouched in front of Ava, checking her with his eyes before he touched her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "I'm sorry. I went to wash my hands, and then I saw her by the window. She said your lawyer called her church." Only then did Caleb look fully at Margaret. Margaret's voice was softer than he remembered, but unmistakable. "The pastor finally reached me last night. I took the first bus this morning. I got here early and was waiting for Ms. Mercer to call me back. Then your little girl recognized me before I recognized her." Dana and Mrs. Jenkins reached them seconds later. Dana took in the scene once quickly, then looked at Margaret with a lawyer's instinctive suspicion sharpening into relief. "You got my message?" Dana asked. Margaret nodded. "Late. I would have called sooner, but my phone was off most of yesterday while I was traveling back from my niece's place. When I heard what this was about, I came." Inside the courtroom, the air changed the moment Margaret took a seat behind Dana's table. Lauren's composure did not shatter, but it shifted. Her shoulders rose slightly, her mouth flattened. Matthew Collins leaned forward behind her, confusion written plainly across his face. Dana was the first to speak. "Your Honor, the respondent requests leave to call a newly available witness whose testimony directly concerns the child's best interests and the petitioner's history of conduct." Richard Bell rose at once. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." Dana did not look at him. "So is a witness thought unavailable arriving this morning in response to contact attempts already disclosed to opposing counsel?" The judge's eyes moved from Dana to Margaret to Caleb. "Identity?" Dana supplied it. "Margaret Doyle, former neighbor, present on a date connected to a medical record already admitted as Respondent's Exhibit C." Richard objected again, but the judge overruled him after a brief exchange, making it clear that credibility and weight would be determined after testimony, not before it. Margaret looked older beneath the courtroom lights than she had in the hallway, but not fragile. There was steadiness in her, the kind that came from surviving enough life to stop being impressed by procedure. Dana began simply. "Ms. Doyle, did you know Caleb Turner and Lauren Whitmore?" "Yes." "How?" "They lived across the hall from me on Mercer Street. Young couple, new baby, too much strain in too small a place." "And do you remember the night of October 17th, 8 years ago?" "I do." "Tell the court what you remember." The room became very still. "I heard shouting first," Margaret said. "Not unusual in that building, but theirs wasn't usually like that. Then I heard something break, a lamp, I think. A child started crying. I opened my door and saw Caleb come out carrying Ava. She had blood on her face from a cut over her eyebrow. He was trying to calm her and find his keys at the same time." Dana let the image settle. "Did you see Ms. Whitmore?" "Yes. She was inside the apartment near the doorway." "Describe what you observed." "She was crying hard, loud, angry. She did not come with them when Caleb took the child downstairs." Dana asked, "What happened next?" "I told him to go. Later that night, he brought Ava to my place wrapped in a blanket while he got medicine from the pharmacy. He asked me not to repeat anything in front of the child. He said, "She's already scared enough. She doesn't need to be afraid of her own mother, too." Dana introduced the emergency room record, then produced a small envelope Margaret had brought from her purse. Inside was a photograph, old and slightly curled. Ava sat on Margaret's plaid sofa in oversized pajamas, a gauze bandage above her eyebrow, eyes swollen from crying. The timestamp in the corner matched the date in the medical record. On the back, in Caleb's cramped handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for helping with Ava. I owe you more than I can say." Richard Bell tried to chip away at the edges on cross-examination, but Margaret gave him nothing soft to grab. She admitted she had not seen the exact moment Ava was hurt. She refused to exaggerate, and because she refused to exaggerate, every careful sentence sounded truer. Then came the part Caleb had dreaded most. The judge agreed to speak briefly with Ava in open court, but in the gentlest form possible, limiting the questions and keeping both attorneys from turning it into a spectacle. Ava was brought to the witness chair, though her feet did not touch the floor when she sat. The judge's voice softened. "Ava, do you know why you're here today?" Ava nodded once. "Because grown-ups are deciding things." A faint sound, almost a laugh and almost grief, escaped someone in the back. "No one is asking you to choose between your parents," the judge said. "Do you understand?" Ava's eyes flicked toward Caleb, then back. "Okay, I only want to know where you feel safe and who takes care of you." Ava swallowed. It was clear she was scared. It was also clear she had decided to be brave anyway. "My dad takes care of me," she said. "Can you tell me what that means?" "It means he wakes me up. He makes oatmeal even when it gets lumpy. He signs my folders and puts notes in my lunch. He knows I don't like when doors slam. When I have bad dreams, he sits by my bed until I go back to sleep." The judge asked, "Do you love your mother?" Ava's face tightened with the pain of the question. "Yes." "Do you feel comfortable with her?" Ava took longer this time. "Sometimes, when it's quiet." The judge let the answer breathe. "And where do you feel most at home?" Ava looked at Caleb fully now, as if she needed to see him hearing her. Then she turned back and said, in the clear, small voice that had carried through every school hallway, every bedtime prayer, every difficult truth in their apartment, "Home is where we tell the truth. That's with my dad." No one moved. Richard tried once more to redirect the court toward square footage and opportunity, toward Lauren's improved circumstances and her stated commitment to rebuilding a relationship. But the shape of the case had already changed. This was no longer a comparison between one home and a better one. It was a question of continuity, safety, memory, and the real life a child had already lived. When the judge returned from recess, the courtroom rose and sat again in a wave of rustling fabric and held breath. Judge Elena Ruiz looked down at the file for a long moment before speaking. Her tone was calm, but nothing in it invited interruption. "This court is not asked to decide which parent can purchase a more attractive life," she said. "It is asked to determine the arrangement that best protects the child's stability, safety, emotional continuity, and overall welfare." Caleb felt Ava's small hand tighten around his finger. The judge acknowledged Lauren's improved finances, her housing, and her stated desire to rebuild a relationship with her daughter. She acknowledged, too, that parents could change and that the law should not punish honest rehabilitation. Then her voice shifted. "But meaningful change is not measured only by appearances or plans. It is measured by consistency, accountability, and the child's lived experience." She reviewed the evidence without drama. Caleb had been the primary caregiver for years. He had handled school, healthcare, housing, food, scheduling, and emotional support. Ava's records, teacher statement, and neighbor testimony all confirmed that he was the parent who had shown up day after day. Margaret Doyle's testimony, supported by the emergency room record and photograph, established that a serious incident had occurred in the past, and that Caleb had chosen silence not for leverage, but out of a misguided attempt to shield the child from fear and divided loyalty. Lauren sat perfectly still, but her face had gone pale. Judge Ruiz continued, "The court does not find that Ms. Whitmore is beyond redemption, nor does it wish to sever the parent-child relationship. However, the child's need for safety and emotional reliability must take priority over the petitioner's wish to accelerate reunification on terms that appear centered more on capacity than on trust." The ruling came clean and final. Primary physical custody would remain with Caleb Turner. Lauren Whitmore would receive structured visitation, beginning under supervision and expanding only as recommended by the court-appointed family counselor and the reunification plan. Ava's school, residence, and daily routine would remain unchanged. For 1 second, Caleb did not move, because his body had forgotten how relief worked. Then Ava turned toward him with wide, searching eyes. "We're staying?" His mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. He nodded hard. "Yeah, baby, we're staying." Ava exhaled like a child surfacing from deep water. She leaned against him, not sobbing, not making a scene, just folding herself into the place she had been fighting to keep. Across the aisle, Lauren lowered her gaze. She did not argue with the judge. She did not explode. The loss reached her in a quieter, more human way than rage. She looked like someone being forced, finally, to face the distance between wanting to reclaim a title and actually earning back a child's trust. Margaret touched Caleb's shoulder once before leaving the courtroom. "She knows who home is," she said. Outside, the afternoon air was cold and bright. Mrs. Jenkins wiped her eyes and pretended she hadn't. Dana shook Caleb's hand, then Ava's, as if both of them had done the hard part. Caleb and Ava started down the courthouse steps together, and halfway to the sidewalk, Ava hooked her pinky around his. He looked down at her. "We're going home, right?" she asked. He smiled then, tired and stunned and full all at once. "Yeah," he said, "we are." That night, the apartment looked exactly the same. The table was still too small, the couch still sagged in the middle, the refrigerator still complained every few minutes, but none of it looked flimsy anymore. Ava sat on the floor with her crayons and drew a picture of the two of them in front of their building. She did not hide it when she was done. Sometimes the strongest home is not the biggest one, the prettiest one, or the one with the best sales pitch. Sometimes it is simply the place where somebody stayed, kept telling the truth, and kept loving without applause until the truth was finally strong enough to speak for itself. If this story moved you, subscribe and follow the channel for more stories about grace, resilience, and the kind of love that proves itself in everyday sacrifice. And maybe carry this with you. A real parent is not defined by comfort or appearances, but by who stays, protects, and tells the truth when it matters most.